I'm certainly not looking to hate on Hotel for Dogs, but this movie annoyed me. And you know, it didn't even get that bad a reception at the box office or with critics, but at the same time, it doesn't work. It's not awful, but I don't know what to say, but I'm gonna try to do my best. A pair of foster siblings named Andi, played by Emma Roberts, and Bruce, played by Jake T. Austin, have been rejected from 5 foster homes as it is, and now are in the custody of an uncaring couple, played by Lisa Kudrow and Kevin Dillon, who are aspiring rock stars. After they're caught by the police for swindling a pawn shop in order to pay for their swindling the pawn shop, their worker, played by their social worker, played by Don Cheadle, warns them that they have to try to make things work and not get in trouble again. Otherwise, this stable have no choice but to separate them in order to try to get them each into foster homes in the future. The reason for trying to make money in an underhanded way was because they owned a dog named Friday, who they've been taking care of in secret for 3 years. Afraid of being accused of a robbery that they didn't commit but just happened to be at the time, they hide from the police in a shut down and abandoned hotel where they happen to find 2 other stray dogs named Lenny and Georgia. Yeah. Or rather, they're named Lenny and Georgia. I'll get back to that in a bit. Desperate to keep the dogs out of the pound, as well as keep their own dog taken care of, they decide to start fixing up parts of the hotel in order to keep the dogs and make for a more of a proper habitat for them to live in. Also getting pulled into the phrase is into the plan is 2 workers at a pet shop, played by Johnny Simmons and Kyla Pratt, and a boy who works at a grocery store, played by Troy Gentile. Can they keep the dogs entertained and taken care of, or will the dogs end up in the pound? So yes, this movie is certainly for dog lovers. There's no doubt about that in mind, and I would not put it past the fact that the people who made this movie probably do love dogs, and a lot of the people involved in the movie probably love dogs. As somebody who's not a pet owner, I can only imagine how that is, but at the same time I can understand it. But at the same time, their focus is so keen on the dogs that they're letting certain aspects of the story slip in order to continue that. And not to mention the fact that, well, actually, probably the biggest complaint I have about this movie, well, positives are that the cast is good, the idea is well-meaninged, and yeah, I can't really think of a whole lot other than that. And a lot of the visuals with the dogs and with the or in general are well done. But okay, I haven't seen a lot of Christian movies, if any at all, but this really feels like a Christian movie, except it's about loving dogs rather than loving God and saying that atheists are awful for not believing in God. This movie is pretty much saying dogs are God, and the pound, people who work at the dog pound are atheists for working at the dog pound. Yeah, the guys who work at the pound, they're made to be the biggest, most unlikable strawmen I think I've ever seen in a film. They are shown to be the most dog-hating, cynical human beings out there, to the point that it is insane that characters like this even exist in a movie. I mean, I can understand the fact that, yeah, don't put animals in a shelter where they'll have to be killed after a certain amount of time. But the fact that they make these guys, so gleeful to to take these dogs off the street, so gleeful to put them in cages, so gleeful to put them down when the right time comes, that it's sickening to a certain degree. And it's really off-putting. I don't know how to process it. I don't know why they did it. They wanted to emphasize so badly how wrong it is to kill animals that they made these characters the most animalistic and unbelievable characters because of that. And it feels... I can't imagine anybody who works at a dog pound actually does feel this way. And most people who work at a dog pound probably don't feel this way. I can't imagine somebody gets their sick kicks that... Yeah, I can imagine there are people who like torturing animals and, like, get off on it. But at the same time, still, to have that portrayed in a kid's film so bluntly, it's kind of sickening. It's disturbing. Other complaints I have about this movie is it has plot elements in it that it just dropped. It has in it for the sake of having semblance of a plot and then dropping them without really any true follow-through. For example, Andi is afraid to tell Johnny Simmons' character, Emma Roberts' character Andi is afraid to tell Johnny Simmons' character, the guy she likes, that her parents are dead and she's a foster child. You can kind of understand why, because it's not accepting that her parents aren't around anymore and that she needs them, but at the same time, the movie never really even hints. The movie vaguely hints at that, and it doesn't have a follow-through with her giving a reason for that arc. When she's caught, she kind of runs off, and you assume that there's a scene where she explains it to him, because he seems fine with the fact that she lied later on, even though the movie never addresses it. And I don't get it. Why did you have it? It's important. It's an important character trait to have in there, but you don't make it make sense in the film that you put it in. You don't have it carry weight without something. You don't have it make a difference. It needs to feel like it's important. Another thing that they kind of just drop and throw away is the fact that, well, it turns out there is a foster family who wants to adopt them, a nice couple that's known to adopt foster children and has been successful with them, but they live 3 hours away and they be away from their dogs, so they tell Don Cheadle that they can't go with the family. And then they ask about whether or not that family's still available, and there's never a direct answer. There's literally not a direct answer given about that. He doesn't say, oh, they don't want you anymore because they heard you got in trouble again. And I can't imagine that with what I heard, the fact that this couple apparently has done this regularly, I can't imagine that a couple troublesome kids like this, who the social worker has spoken highly of, would be so quick to reject them. And why wouldn't they be a good fit for them? I've apparently heard nothing to the contrary, other than the distance aspect. And yet they have, well, Don Cheadle is their social worker, and he is a fairly major character in the film, so you can figure out where things are going by the end of the film. And, yeah, the aspect to the point where, spoiler alert, the Hotel for Dogs actually does indeed become a hotel for dogs. It is a cornball ending, to say the least. I can understand some semblance of being feel good and really wanting to drive home the point of, like, a happy ending, but this just didn't work. This is the silliest of silliest and unbelievable bits of a film that you could have had. And not to mention the fact that I thought the climax was actually working pretty well. It was something less that I didn't expect, for them to be trying freeing all the dogs from the pound before they're all put to death after 3 days. And you have them trying to race the dogs across the county line or the town line in order to be able to get them out of the pound's jurisdiction and get them to a no-kill shelter in that specific area. But then you sidetrack it for the just most predictable of endings. And I can kind of understand the fact that, yeah, it's driving home the theme of home, and it's trying to add weight to what has happened before. But it just isn't very satisfying, because you've given up this fascinating way to end the film in favor of just a borderline standard conclusion that just really just did nothing but frustrate. I mean, not frustrate. Again, there's not really, other than the things I've said, this is a fairly standard and harmless film. But it's just those things just got to me in ways that I didn't expect. They upset me, and it just drove me to got me mad in ways that I didn't expect. Because I guess I just have a certain way of viewing things, and those things just went so against my thought process, so against the desire for realism in a movie about keeping dogs entertained in a abandoned hotel. Yeah, again, like I said, I can completely understand if you get into this movie just for being a dog lover, and if you don't have anywhere near the same issues I do, I suppose if that's enough for you, then it will be enough for you. I can't blame you for that. But with that said, though, this movie's bite is certainly worse than its bark.